October was a bit of a nightmare. I don't mean this in the spooky season Halloween sense either. I mean that October was a pretty awful month that wasn't very enjoyable for our family. We spent the first 2/3 of the month sick. The first week my son was sick, and the next 2 weeks my wife and I were both sick as well. We know that the three of us all had pneumonia, but it seems likely that there was something else in the mix as well. This kind of made our lives slow down considerably, as it was often hard to feel like doing more than sleeping or fairly passive activities. So needless to say, October got fairly derailed in many ways. Included in this was the fact that I wasn't able to get all the videos I wanted to out for the channel, and I also didn't get as far in story games as I would have hoped either. Considering being sick for much of October, I still did wind up playing a decent amount of games, and I even have a completion as well. So let's check out what I was able to play in October 2024. So I was able to complete one game this month in the early parts of the month before I got sick. And that game is 1979 Revolution Black Friday. This game was an interesting experience. It helped me learn a little about an event that I didn't really know much about, the Iranian Revolution. And I enjoyed learning about this. The game, though, had some flaws as well that brought the overall experience down for me. Despite it being flawed, I was able to complete the base story and also work on getting all the trophies to get my 109th platinum. It was nice to have a shorter experience after having a number of longer games recently. I will probably put out a review for this in November for those that may want to know a bit more about it. In terms of story games, I have 2 for October. I continued to play one game that has been in this category for a long time, while also adding a new game. The first story game is Stardew Valley. I was able to finally get into fall of year 2 during October. It was nice to make the progress into a new season, and hopefully I'll be able to move a little quicker through fall than I did summer. I did feel like I played Stardew Valley a bit more than sometimes this month. It was a nice game to play when you weren't entirely feeling up to much else. I don't really remember there being any accomplishments that were too big other than hitting the new season. I have had some character events, and I am continuing to work on gaining money, expanding the farm operations, and also trying to get some quests worked on that I currently have active. The second story game is Final Fantasy VIII Remastered. I started to play the next game in the Final Fantasy series in October. I didn't get super far in this game, both due to being sick, but also due to just how long this game takes to get going. I feel like you spend a good amount of the early game drawing magic so that you can junction it to your characters for stat boosts. This really makes the pace of the game feel very slow. I get that part of it is on me and my completionist nature, so I want to try to get all the different magic drawn that I can early on, but the system is a bit flawed. It's not even that I dislike the general system in the game, but it just seems harder to procure magic than it really needs to be. Anyhow, all that to say that I didn't get very far in the game in October. I'm just done with the seed trial and heading back to Balam Garden. So I doubt that I'll get through this in November, but I can hope, right? Moving on from story games, I'll be focusing on games that I call endless games. These are games that don't have clear-cut endings. They can be online PvP, arcade, sandbox, creative, simulation, or party games. Some of these are games I enjoy quite a bit and keep playing off and on, while others are ones that I play for a season and then move on from. There are also games that we'll play as a family off and on depending on the month. I don't feel like there's a lot of variety here from some months. Due to being sick, we didn't wind up playing a lot of board games or a lot of random video games as a family, but we did wind up playing a lot of 3 video games together. These were all endless games, and I'll mention those when I get to them in the list. I was also able to play a few other games myself in this category during the month, so it made for a decent variety of games, just maybe not as much as some months. And the first game is Fortnite. October is always a fun month in Fortnite, I feel. Fortnitemares is typically a pretty good time regardless of the season you're in, and I felt like this year was no exception. Between Battle Royale having seasonal locations, weapons, and quests, and limited modes like Horde Rush, it's easy to have a good time. We played quite a bit of Fortnite in October, as it was one of the 3 games that we played while being sick fairly regularly. Due to this, I was able to get up to level 200 a few days before the end of the month. I have been enjoying the Marvel season, but I think that I enjoyed the first Marvel season a little better. Doesn't mean that I dislike this one, and I am kind of sad to see it go, but hopefully the Chapter 2 remix season will be fun as well. Second endless game is Marvel Snap. My month in Marvel Snap was pretty much the usual. I got to the 70s on the ladder, I earned my Conquest variant, and just struggled to get anything beyond that. One thing that was very different this month was the limited time mode of High Voltage. I loved this mode and found it a lot of fun. It was definitely the highlight of my month regarding Marvel Snap. I think it was just the quick gameplay with no real negative aspect to it. It's not like Ladder where a loss knocks you down, or like Conquest, which can take so very long and be really drug out, but have you end up with nothing to show for all the time you just spent battling. In terms of gains for the month, I was able to gain a few new cards. I received Agent Venom from the season pass, but also received Fastos, Sage, Meek, Agony, and Toxin over the course of the month. I think it was a fairly good month for new cards, but I also gained a number of new variants as well, which is always fun to gain over the course of the month, especially if you wind up getting ones that you haven't had a variant for that card yet. Third endless game is NGU Idol. October saw me travel into the next difficulty level of NGU Idol, Evil difficulty. I was wary of this transition as I thought it would take a lot of grinding to make any progress at all. This wasn't quite the case, as I felt that Evil was a strange mix of good progression, but also making systems that I had been relying on not nearly as useful. This has made Evil somewhat interesting. I feel like I'm making decent progress as I've maxed out 2 equipment sets and I'm working on a 3rd already. I've even completed one challenge fully and am working on completing a second one. I wonder if there will be a wall that I hit soon that will require a bit more time, but so far I'm feeling pretty good about the transition into Evil, and we'll see how long that lasts. Fourth endless game is Warframe. Here was the second game that we played quite a bit as a family over October. It was probably the one we played the least of the 3, but we did play it more regularly than we have previous months altogether. Most of the time was spent helping my wife get further in the star chart, since she's the one who has started playing most recently. Other than that, I think the biggest accomplishment for me was hitting Mastery Rank 20. Fifth endless game is Overwatch 2. This was the 3rd game that we played quite a bit as a family. While it may not have been played as much as Fortnite in October, I feel like it probably came close. This was mainly due to the Junkenstein's Lab game mode. While we did play regular Overwatch earlier in the month, once Junkenstein's Lab released, I think we only played that the rest of the time. It was fun to play this more during the month, and playing it more almost tempted me to go for the season pass, but I figured that now that we're back to being healthy, we won't probably be playing Overwatch quite as much, even if it was a fun time in October, and it probably really wasn't worth going for the season pass. And the last endless game is Vampire Survivors. I had yet to finish up some of the achievements from the last free update to Vampire Survivors, so I went in this month and tackled those. I also played a bit more after hearing that a Castlevania DLC was going to drop on Halloween. I was able to play a bit of this on release day. It's pretty fun so far. I'll admit I was a bit worried about this DLC since so much of Vampire Survivors is based off of Castlevania in the first place, but so far things have felt different enough, and I'm liking what I've played of it so far. This is also a pretty big DLC, so I'm looking forward to exploring it and hopefully releasing a review of it in November. Trophy hunting was a casualty of the month. I just didn't really wind up having the energy or the time to go after them this month. Maybe November will be more successful on that front. And that's what I played during October. The month was pretty terrible for us as a family, but I did still get some game playing in. Some games far more than I was expecting to going into the month, and other games not nearly as much. All things considered though, we made the best of our month, but I wish we didn't have to go through the month that we did. How about you? What have you been playing in October? Let me know in the comments, as it's always fun to see what others are playing and if they would recommend those games to others. Hope everyone had a great month and that you're keeping healthy and that you've been playing games that you enjoy. That's all for now, so I'll see you in the next video.